Hey there, welcome to CKLU 96.7. It is just after 5 and we are here live in the studio for another edition of Creator Conversations. I'm your host Jess from our Creator. This week we're doing things a little bit differently, something we've never done before. We have our guests live in studio. So today we have joining us Max Merrifield from Northern Lights Festival Boreal. He's the executive director and also now the artistic director of the festival now that he's taken on a whole new realm of responsibilities. So welcome to the show, Max.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, sure. So you're gearing up for the festival this year, and you had a great year last year, extending the festival to 4 days, and you had an amazing turnout. So what kind of led to the decision to try out a 4-day format?
Originally last year, you mean?
Yeah, originally last year.
Yeah, well, last year it sort of stemmed from a project we wanted to do within the programming, which was a spotlight on Indigenous artists, but it became very clear early on that for me to just do it on my own, just something didn't feel right about it. And so we decided very early that we needed to collaborate with a team of Indigenous artists to program that Thursday night, which was culminated with the Buffy St. Marie performance and had, the Jerry Cans and numerous other fantastic Indigenous artists. And then this year, because of the 4-day format, how successful it was last year, we decided to do it again. And although you won't find like a central theme isolated to the Thursday this year, there'll just be, a ton of great music, and there are some little themes within the program I'll tell you about later, I guess.
Yeah, for sure. So you saw a big spike in attendance last year. It was about, I think, 10,000 I read that you had extra.
Yeah, our actual final count was 11,205 people over the 4 days. And yeah, it was great. It's one of our... I don't know if it's the highest attendance ever, but definitely one of the highs.
One of the higher attended ones.
And... it really was, I think, a combination of a few things. Adding the day, of course, adds attendees. But also, I think we just got some really solid programming. We had some solid support from sponsors and funders to help us get that programming. And people really responded.
Mm-hmm. And, especially with such a great turnout for your first year acting as the artistic director, that's a great high to go on for your first year taking that on.
Yeah, it was a huge coup because I was definitely... I felt, I don't know, I was confident, I knew I had my vision and what I wanted to do and, a lot of support. But at the same time, I was a little nervous because it's my first time. It's a lot of money to work with. It's a lot of responsibility, and it's a really deep tradition going back, 47 years. So I didn't want to screw it up. And it couldn't have gone better, really. I was so happy with the way everything went. It was a beautiful festival, and we're going to do it again.
Great time. So can you tell us about this year's lineup? So we're doing the 4-day festival again, starting on July 5th, going to July 8th. So can you tell us more about the lineup for this year?
Yeah, absolutely. So, people always want to know about the headliners, and we have some really great ones this year. Thursday will be Arkells, the Hamilton rock band who've risen to great heights and 4-time Juno winners. Just really one of the hottest Canadian acts out there right now doing it. And check out their... Oh, we're going to listen to it later, actually, so I won't even talk about that. But... and then on Friday, we have Lisa LeBlanc, Acadian. She calls her music folk trash. It's really, folk, bluegrass, blues, country rock. With
attitude.
With attitude, with edge, yeah, with a little punk energy. Some people have compared it a mix between Courtney Barnett and Dolly Parton, and that I think is a cool way to describe it.
I like it.
Yeah, exactly. She's just amazing, and for those who heard about or went to the French Fest downtown Sudbury a few years back, she was the headliner there and just blew everyone away. It was just amazing. She does this cover. One of the many things she does is this cover of Ace of Spades by Motorhead, and she just rips this insane banjo solo on it. It's amazing. And then Saturday night, it's one of the Canada's fastest rising indie bands, Always. We're really, really excited to have them on board. And Sunday will be Bill and Joel Plaskett. So Joel Plaskett, the loved Canadian singer-songwriter, but bringing his dad because they have this cool new collaboration album together. So those are the headliners. And there's so much, there's so much other stuff going on. There's a bit of a current of African music within the programming and a lot of other stuff.
Yeah, so I wanted to talk about that kind of influence you have kind of infusing the festival. So last year there was definitely a huge Indigenous influence, and then this year we've kind of, we're seeing a lot of more African influence. So was that like a conscious decision to focus on that, or was that kind of just what you were listening to?
It was definitely a conscious decision in terms of just like wanting to expose more people to this great African music that I think sometimes gets isolated to like the category of world music, like something your weird uncle who wears Hawaiian shirts listens to or something, like it's so much more than that. It's just like great music. And of course the continent's so vast that like even the term African music is kind of problematic in a lot of ways, or what that means is kind of a bit of an enigma. But yeah, I mean, last year what we did with Indigenous artists and bringing Indigenous programmers in to help and volunteer some of their time, I think was a bit more of a project, whereas this year it's more of just a sort of a flavor within the programming that, just trying to expose people to some of these great music styles that are rooted in African tradition.
Yeah, nice. So part of Northern Lights Festival, and really any music festival, it's not about the headliners, it's about seeing everything that there is to see and hearing new things and kind of really allowing yourself to be immersed in the festival. So what other exciting things will be going on at the festival this summer that people can look forward to?
Like non-musical things?
Musical things and non-musical things.
Well, here's one that an artist that I'm super excited about that we haven't, I guess, been hyping up that much yet, but people are just gonna love him. His name's C.R. Avery. He's this eccentric guy, I guess, from is originally from Smiths Falls, Ontario, actually, but he's become like sort of an icon of East Vancouver, and he's won awards for his spoken word poetry, and he has 3 poetry books, and he's written musicals, and he's working on a film, I think. He does all these things. He's a beatboxer who plays harmonica. That's one of the main things he's known for. So he reworks these old folk tunes and but makes them like hip hop beatbox through a harmonica. It's pretty amazing. He's also just a crazy and weird songwriter, but sometimes very funny, sometimes very deep. He's all over the map, and I think people are gonna love C.R. Avery. So check his stuff out. Other stuff we have going on. Well, it's been a festival favorite at the last 2 festivals is Paul Elter, this photographer who comes in from Chelsea, Quebec, and he does tintype photography. So this is the old school type of photography you see from early 1900s, where it's all gray and the eyes usually look kind of whited out. Because, you have to sit there for 30 seconds, so any movement, including your eye movement, will blur things. Mm-hmm. But he goes around the festival site and takes these amazing portraits of, like last year he got, Fred Penner and, some of the other great artists that just look really cool. And so he'll be there, for something off stage for people to check out. And I guess another thing is people are just going to notice a difference in the design of the site and the way it looks this year. We're putting a lot more effort into the aesthetic of the whole experience and making it really multi-sensory and making the site a living work of art kind of thing. So stay tuned for more news on that, but we're working on a lot of things.
Yeah, that sounds really exciting. Now, any festival definitely does not get pulled off without the help of many, many hands. So volunteers are a huge part of Northern Lights Festival and definitely make things, keep things running. So can you tell us a bit more about what kind of volunteer opportunities, what help you're looking for, how people can get involved?
Absolutely. People can get involved as volunteers in so many ways. It can be at any time during the year. We need volunteers for stuff all year long. Of course, we need way more around the festival weekend. First of all, you get to go to the shows for a bit of your time and your labor, but it's fun labor. It's you get to be behind the scenes and help make the festival magic happen, and it's really cool to be a part of that, and that's how I got involved. But we need over 300 volunteers to pull off the festival weekend. So if people want to sign up, just head to nlfb.ca/volunteers. That's our website. You can sign up right there online. That's the best way to do it. Get your name in. Yeah, you can volunteer, during certain times of day, so you don't have to miss concerts, which is pretty cool. And you could do anything from helping keep the site clean to shuttling artists around to serving food to the artists, registering people as they come in, ticket booth, all kinds of stuff. We even need photographers and things like that too. So,
is there an age limit to volunteer?
I believe it's 14 and up, yeah.
Okay.
But if anyone younger than that, if they're with a parent or guardian, they can volunteer as well.
And any high school students need to get their community service hours, definitely.
Absolutely.
A great chance to knock a bunch of those off.
Totally. I mean, so many students come and just get them all done in one shot at the festival.
Absolutely. Great. So we're going to head into some music here. So we're going to play a few of Max's picks from this year's lineup. So we're going to start up with People's Chants by Arkells, Having an Average Weekend by Shadowy Men on a Shadowy Planet, and Siriri by Letitia Zonzambe. I definitely probably pronounced that wrong, but we're trying here.
No, you did good.
So Arkells, this first one, I got to give you a warning. That one has an explicit label, so if you need to change the channel, now's the time. But here we go. Thanks for tuning in to Creator Conversations presented by Our Creator. We can't play the music right here, but check out below for the link to this week's playlist, as well as all the links you need for this week's guest. Make sure you're subscribed to Our Creator on all your feeds. Look us up on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, all under Our Creator, and use the hashtag Our Creator to be featured. Hey, welcome back to CKLU 96.7. This is an hour of our Creator Conversation presented by Our Creator. So today we're doing our show live in the studio. We have Max Merrifield. He is the Executive Director and Artistic Director for Northern Lights Festival Boreal. So we're talking about the festival coming up this summer, July 5th through the 8th. 4 nights, 4 full days really, of great music, all sorts of different things. We've talked about the lineup in our first half. But now, so something that's kind of interesting that maybe not everybody knows about the festival, which is kind of cool, is Max, is that actually your dad founded the festival, and now you've kind of grown up and taken over the reins. So can you tell us, like, what was, like everybody's dad tells them like these crazy stories about growing up and the things that they did, but your dad actually did something that's still around. So what was his origin stories that he would tell you?
Well, I guess the festival started in 1972, and it was, I believe they got some funding through like youth centers or something, like or youth, like what would now be like Employment and Social Development Canada, I believe. And they wanted to do something with music, and like originally I think it was going to be like a series of coffee houses or like shows or something, but then it ended up being a festival. And the first year it was really small, and there was one stage and it was free, and I think it was free for a couple years. But it grew very quickly. I mean, after by the time they got into, I think like 76 and 77, they started, I think, having like headliners and stuff like that. But it was very much folk music oriented at that point in time, although it's always been very multicultural. It wasn't just like Americana and bluegrass. It was like a lot, like world music in there since the beginning. And where, some of the folk festivals in those days would have things like no drums, like rules like no drums. That's like a bluegrass festival thing you hear a lot. But Northern Lights would break those conventions sometimes, I think, and we continue. Yeah, we continue to break the conventions and keep challenging our audiences. So that's kind of how it started, and it was very small. I don't think anyone knew that it would last for 47 years or more. Well, definitely more. Yeah, there's a lot of crazy stories from like the history of the festival. Do you want me to tell one?
Oh, sure. Yeah. Like, what's a standout one?
Okay, here's like a really interesting story that you don't, because this is like stuff you only know if you hang out with like the guys who set up the site for the festival. This is like behind the scenes.
This is like exclusive content here.
Exactly. So I didn't know this until I started going down there and setting up the site with these guys. And there's this volunteer Duke. He's an older guy, and he's got a big beard and wears a cowboy hat. And he still comes out. He's like, I don't know. I think he's in his 70s. I'm not sure. Still comes out and pounds in pegs, and we try to make sure he doesn't work too hard. But he tells this story of, at one point, I think it was in the late 70s, they used to go to Petawawa, the army base, and get tents from them for the event. They would rent them, or I don't know. They were able to do that back then. So they went to get the tents this one year. And he says they remember when they loaded on the truck that it was extremely heavy, and they were concerned, like, why is this so heavy? Like, but they didn't think of anything of it. They got on the truck with a bunch more guys, and they drove it back to Sudbury. And then they unloaded everything and unwrapped all the tents, and inside that one was a giant machine gun, like from the army base. So yeah, no one really knows how it got there. Like, the theory is that maybe someone was trying to steal it and they like hid it in the tent to get later. But yeah, they called up the army base and they said, I don't know how long it takes to get from Petawawa, but they said they were there like in, the nick of time. Like, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, and they took it away, and then a normal festival happened, and everyone had a good time,
and everyone forgot about it
exactly
until today.
yeah. So there's a weird story from the history of the festival. But yeah, my dad helped start it. Then he was the artistic director for over 10 years, I believe, and then there was a series of others who came after him, like Paul and a whole bunch of other people, and that's basically the history.
Yeah, and Paul Lowenberg, that you would recognize from the Townhouse Tavern, he was the artistic director for something like 15 years, right?
16, I believe.
16 years, wow. So what was it like kind of finally getting the reins passed over to you from him?
Oh, it was very cool. Like, Paul taught me a lot about booking and programming a festival. Well, during the time that he was artistic director and I was staff at the festival, and then it was I think he loved doing it. So I think in a way it might have been a little bit hard for him to hand it over, but also he felt he wanted to move on to new things and wanted the festival to have a new life, and it was pretty cool to be given that responsibility and to have that trust put in me by the organization and ultimately by Paul, because he was in support of all that. So yeah, it's pretty cool, and just trying to run with it, and in the same way that he and my dad and countless others did, just keep trying to inspire people with the music and bring people together with the community of the festival.
So what kind of advice, seeing as your dad, Scott Merrifield, he was the artistic director for so long, you're obviously close with Paul as well, so what kind of advice have they been giving you leading up to as you've been making your selections for the lineups?
That's interesting. Well, with Paul, because his experience is more recent in terms of like headliners and the amount of money you pay for an act and that type of thing, I'll often just text Paul and say, hey, do you remember when you had so and so? Like, what did you pay him? Or like, like, hey, I'm looking into this artist. Do you think this is too much money? Or whatever it is, because it's a big balancing act in terms of your budget. So
yeah, for sure.
So with Paul, I'll check in like periodically about stuff. Right now with my dad, it's more about like what the music is and the quality of it, like the content. And I'll be like, do you think this artist would work with, I know this artist would work with like my age crowd. Do you think your age would get into it too? Because Northern Lights has a really wide variety of ages and audiences, so it's a tricky festival to program in that sense. Yeah,
and that there's quite a few people that come to the festival that have been diehard and been coming from day one. Mm-hmm. But then you want to also appeal to people that haven't been to the festival before, that
absolutely
are going to be new people that have been in the festival for 30, 40 years eventually.
Yeah, and I think like people like Paul, introduced like some of the new styles of music that were going on at the time that you couldn't deny the power of those movements, like the indie rock boom of, there's great songwriting happening there that's relatable to folk and roots music as well. So that's become something the next generation has expected, and then now we're like 3 generations in or more.
Yeah, for sure. So now, growing up around the festival, volunteering probably all your life at the festival, there's a great picture that you can find on the Northern Lights Festival Boreal page of you enjoying a nice beer, a nice underage beer, and in your diaper.
Yeah.
So you've been there from day one. So did you ever imagine at some point that you would be running the festival?
Not at all. It wasn't on my radar at all. And I didn't, because it's a pretty niche kind of job. Like, not a lot of people are festival directors or festival programmers for a living. So I never crossed my mind. I went to school for political science. I wanted to work in international development and, work overseas in different countries and travel the world. And, and I've done some of that travel, but, I found myself back in Sudbury with a crappy job. I was working at the milk production plant. No disrespect to them, but it's, I just graduated university and
just you didn't have what it took.
Exactly. So my title there was hooker. Actually, that's the job title. You move stacks of milk crates with a steel hook. Anyways, and a job like like a post grad internship position came up at the festival, and I applied and I got the job, and then with my now partner Ashlyn, we proceeded to try to take the organization in new places, and eventually moved into the director position, eventually moved into the artistic director position.
Yeah. Now, I'm glad actually you mentioned Ashlyn, because now I believe the story goes that your parents actually met over the festival or connected to the festival, right?
That's true, yeah.
And then obviously we see the exact same thing mirrored with your partner Ashlyn, who actually, Ashlyn Botella, you can check her out from she's working at Jazz Festival Sudbury, so definitely keep your eye out for that. They've got their emerging artist showcase coming up at the beginning of June, and then the festival in September. So what a weird coincidence, this mirror.
I guess the festival on. Just it's a place where love happens. It's bizarre. Again, it's not something I would have planned. I didn't plan to mirror my dad's life, but I just Ash and I worked together for a few years, and eventually we fell in love, and we're together. We have a beautiful little daughter named Layla, and it's weird that we both met working for Northern Lights. But it's cool too, and it makes for a good interview topic. Yeah, for sure.
So what was it like bringing Layla to her? Was last year her first festival?
That would have been her second.
Second festival? Well, maybe her first one that she'd sort of enjoyed.
Yeah.
So what did she think? Was she a fan? Do you think she'll be willing to come this year?
Oh yeah, for sure. I think she definitely had, the first year she couldn't care less. She was like a little blob. She was only a few months old.
Yeah.
And then the second year, I think she enjoyed it a bit. She was just starting to walk at that point, and she could get into some of the music and just the excitement of the energy that was going on. This year though, now she's
a whole new ball game.
Yeah, she'll be over 2. So she's running around. She's loving everything. She's exploring everything, checking everything out. So I think this year is really the year. And
this is going to be the year. Yeah,
it's a good segue though. But we have a lot of great stuff for kids this year too. Including Connie Calder, who's a famous Canadian folk musician for her contemporary work, for grown-ups, but she's also won 3 Junos for her kids' work. So lots of great stuff for Layla and all the other kids out there in Sudbury land.
Yeah. The children's entertainment is always kind of one of the nice little features of the festival for sure. So can you tell us more about vendors are kind of one of the big things that everybody likes to check out at the festival. And I know that this year for the second year you're doing there's a collaboration with Make Makers North. Can you tell us more about kind of some of the vendors that you have confirmed for the festival?
Yeah, actually, I don't know how much I can tell you about specific vendors confirmed because I don't work directly on that, but I think I know a few. But we work really hard to try to curate that as much as we do the music, the types of vendors, artisans, crafters, but also nonprofit community booths, food vendors that are on site. And this year we're trying to do more than ever, but really diverse and different products for everyone. So one of the ways we've done that, which was sort of a pilot we did last year, was a partnership with Makers North. And so instead of, previously we only had, 10 by 10 spaces available for artisan vendors. We liked if you were there the whole weekend, that was kind of an expectation. But Makers North, great organization, presenting makers fairs and craft fairs and things like that. Very cool stuff. They came to us, or we had a mutual sort of interest, and so we did this Makers North Pavilion. So you don't have to have the tent to set up the space. You can just go under a shared tent, a large tent space. You can come for just one day if you want. And they're really knowledgeable team sort of curates it because they know a lot about maker culture and this kind of thing. So it's a really cool spot, and I think it just made the vendor selection and artisan selection way more interesting last year. So it's back this year. You can find info on our website and on their website.
For sure. And the Artist Village as well is another highlight. So is there anything that's planned that's going to be going on in that area yet?
We're still we're gonna have a whole announcement around this, so I can't say too much.
Ooh, very exciting.
Yeah, because we're doing a lot actually. But one thing people will notice this year is a lot more color on site through how do I say it? Series of custom flags and banners and just a lot of cool, colorful fabric flying everywhere. So you look for that. It's kind of hard to describe until you see it. But I also mentioned Paul Elter, the photographer, who'll be there. Myths and Mirrors Community Arts will be back doing a bunch of great stuff, coordinating stage painters who go by the stage and paint.
By the main stage.
Inspiration, paint to the inspiration of the music, and and then showcase various other projects of theirs on site, circus arts, and last year they did some stuff like movable art pieces, like billboards on chalk things that you could move around, but then they would just erase them and do new ones. It was cool. It was yeah. And that's really what we've got so far there, but stay tuned for a ton of other installation artists, visual artists, even performance and stuff too.
Nice. So now we've talked about programming the festival, and always, especially for a nonprofit like Northern Lights Festival, it's you've got a budget you got to keep in mind. If you had an unlimited budget, give me a few of the performers you'd like to bring in.
Oh wow, unlimited, really unlimited,
Oh yeah, Oprah's sponsoring the festival. Festival 50, presented by Oprah Winfrey.
That's tough. Well, if you say unlimited, it makes me think of the biggest icons, So if we could have enough money to get technology to bring Leonard Cohen back from the dead, Leonard Cohen would be on that list. I want to say people like Bob Dylan, because it's just a favorite for me. But some of the acts I think about sometimes that are not completely outside of the realm of possibility for Northern Lights would be people like Sufjan Stevens, people like Emmylou Harris, people like a newer artist would be Jason Isbell, is a real favorite of mine. Those maybe someday those ones will be a possibility, but
yeah. but just not this year. Oh man. So you've been at the helm for a couple years now as the executive director. This is your second year as the artistic director, so you're really steering the boat right now. So where do you want to see the festival in 5 years, you think?
Well, I want to see the festival keep growing in size. Small is great, but just want to expose more people to this great music and this great live music experience. I think eventually, who knows? The festival could be a week long. I don't know, or maybe 6 days, 5 days. Who knows? I think with enough work, we could do a lot of things and explore even styles of music we haven't explored as much in the past. Also, I should mention, I haven't talked about this a lot, but we are actually launching a new festival in March, February or March. We're still working on the date, the venue of 2019. I will say that it's going to be very internationally focused, very, I almost don't like the term world music, but it'll be very international, contemporary and traditional music in a multi-venue kind of format. So I hope that event keeps expanding and we're able to offer this cool little vibrant celebration in the cold of winter or the early spring. Nice.
Yeah. So that's something to look forward to for next year for sure.
Yeah.
But not before this year. All right. So Max, can you tell us, we're going to head to some music here, but can you tell us first where people can get tickets?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So everything's on our website at nlfb.ca. And it's good. We upgraded our hosting package. Some of you may have noticed the response when we announced our lineup was so great that the site went down. We're good. We got you covered now. So you can find everything on there about volunteering, tickets, anything festival related you need to know.
Yeah, and how much is a pass right now?
Passes right now depends. Like a day, like an all-day pass can be from $30 to $45, I believe, right now. And the weekend passes are on sale for $90. But I should also mention that kids 14 and under are free, absolutely free. And there's a student or youth pass. So you're either a registered student or youth under 25. You get the whole 4 days for $60. So it's a great deal.
Nice. No excuses.
No. All
right. So we're going to go into music here. So we've got first up Dreams Tonight by Always. They'll be headlining the Saturday night of the festival. After that, we're going to have Solidarity by Bill and Joel Plaskett. They'll be headlining the Sunday night of the festival. So make sure you check out Northern Lights Festival this summer. It's July 5th through the 8th.
Thanks for tuning in to Creator Conversations presented by Our Creator. We can't play the music right here, but check out below for the link to this week's playlist, as well as all the links you need for this week's guest. Make sure you're subscribed to Our Creator on all your feeds. Look us up on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, all under Our Creator, and use the hashtag Our Creator to be featured.
All right, welcome back to CKLU 96.7. So we are almost ready to wrap up our show here today. So we just had final little bit of music here. So there was Dreams Tonight by Always. They'll be headlining Northern Lights Festival on the Saturday night. That will be July 7th. As well, there was Solidarity by Bill and Joel Plaskett, who will be headlining the festival July 8th. So you can check out Northern Lights Festival down at Bell Park, July 5th through the 8th. They're going to be performing all sorts of great stuff, and there's lots of stuff to do for kids. There's lots of stuff to do for just basically everyone, the whole family. Maybe there'll be a Cortina cruise you can catch even. We also tossed in another song by C.R. Avery, who was Max's pick for a festival performer that everyone should be checking out. So we tossed that one in there as well. That was Dungeon of Love. So checking out ourcreator.com, we've got a few updates for you. So if you check out, you can find one of our past articles, Creator Conversation episodes with Lisa O'Connell just went up. We were talking with her about Pat the Dog and Play Smelter. Play Smelter is going on right now, so you can catch Play Smelter December at the Sudbury Theatre Centre. Started yesterday, May 30th, and is going till May 5th, April 30th and going until May 5th. You can catch all sorts of different productions there. So productions that are in their initial stages, still doing screen or script readings, into the next phase doing workshops, and then going all the way to essentially fully cooked pieces that have went through the whole process. And it's a really exciting opportunity for you to get a look behind the scenes, but it's also a great opportunity for these playwrights to get some feedback from an audience while they're still working on the piece. So definitely check that out at Sudbury Theatre Centre. You can look up Pat the Dog on Facebook or online to find more information for tickets. We've got an update on La Fromagerie. They're going to be doing a Cheese of the Month Club, so you can check out on ourcreator.com for more information about that. We have another article up here, past episode of Creator Conversations we did with Lee Service, who's releasing a children's album anytime now. We got a little bit of sneak information as well from him about a Far From Heroes reunion that's coming up in June. We've also got a bit of a tutorial here, essential oils and how to use them, with Dana Clark. So she gives us all the details that you need to know if you're someone who's new to the idea of essential oils. We've also got an update on Alibi Room. So this is a new place downtown on Durham Street, since this location of the old Speakeasy. So they've kept the same kind of Prohibition era vibe, but kind of turned into a way more swanky kind of high class version. So different take on the same theme. So really exciting, some place for you to check out this weekend if you haven't been yet. Remember as well to make sure that you're subscribed to our creator on Facebook, on Twitter, and on Instagram. You never know what we're going to be up to, and you can check us out on there to keep up to date with what's going on in your community. So we're going to sign off for today. Keep tuned in though. Very shortly, Steve will be on for 6 Degrees.